The haunting mystery of the lake that disappeared at midnight. You'll never believe what happened. In the shadow of a moonlit night, when the world held its breath, something truly bizarre unfolded. A lake, once a mirror of shimmering stars, vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a chilling silence that wrapped around the old trees like a ghostly shroud. People from neighboring towns flocked to the edge of the woods, their faces pale, eyes wide with disbelief. The air felt electric, crackling with anticipation and whispered fears. What could have caused such a thing? The stories flew like wildfire: specters, spells, even the devil himself. As the crowd gathered, whispers tangled with the breeze. They spoke of the old woman who lived alone in a rickety cabin nearby, a woman who was said to converse with shadows at twilight. Just this past week, she had warned the townsfolk about an impending doom, a warning no one took seriously. And now, here they were, staring into the abyss where the lake used to be, their hearts pounding at the thought of what could lurk deep within the darkness. 3 lonely stones jutted out from the mud, their jagged surfaces glistened under the eerie moonlight, almost inviting fishermen and adventurers to come closer. The silence grew thicker. Was that a soft, haunting melody echoing from the depths? Or merely the wind playing tricks? The tension in the air pressed down on their chests, people exchanging nervous glances, some trembling as shadows danced just out of sight. Could it be true? Could the lake be angry for some forgotten sin? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. But just as the tales of the lake's death loomed larger, a shadow broke through the trees. A figure, cloaked in darkness, emerged with eyes that glinted like shards of glass. It approached the remnants of what was once a beloved lake, and the crowd gasped, holding their breath as the figure raised an arm towards the empty space. What did this mysterious person know? And could they be the key to unraveling the enigma that had everyone on edge? The haunting mystery had just begun. A hush fell over the crowd as the figure stepped forward. The moonlight danced across the contours of its cloak, revealing hints of a face that was hidden in shadow. Pulses quickened. Fear gripped their hearts as the figure raised its other arm, pointing at the jagged stones, almost like a conductor calling forth an unseen symphony. "Who are you?" A voice finally broke through, shaky but determined. It was Clara, a girl known for her bravery. Still, even she felt the sweat bead on her forehead. The crowd turned their gaze towards this mysterious stranger, their curiosity mingling with dread. "I've come to warn you," the figure spoke, its voice echoing hauntingly in the still night. The lake did not disappear. It was taken. A collective gasp echoed through the crowd. Murmurs surged like waves. Taken? By whom? What do you mean? Clara pressed, stepping closer, driven by an instinctual need to understand. Despite the growing weight of unease pressing against her chest, the figure's eyes, sharp and piercing, seemed to look right through her. "The spirits are restless, they seek retribution. The sins of the past linger, and unless you confront them, darkness will swallow you whole." Just then, a ripple raced through the gathered townsfolk. They exchanged uneasy glances, some shifting nervously. Memories of forgotten tales, the drowning tragedies whispered about in hushed tones, flashed in their minds. Each victim buried beneath the waves held a secret. Was that what the figure meant? No one believed her, the old woman, Clara thought, remembering the warnings that had come too late. "Where do we begin?" "Follow me," the figure commanded, and without waiting, turned away, headed towards the woods. The air around them seemed charged, a mix of dread and an unexplainable pull. Against their better judgment, Clara stepped forward, her curiosity outweighing her fears. The crowd followed hesitantly, each crack of a twig beneath their feet sounded like thunder in the silence as they tread deeper into the woods. The moon, a witness to their journey, cast long shadows over the ground. Dark branches clawed at the sky, and the soft melody that had drawn them earlier echoed again, a soft, chilling lullaby that beckoned them forward. "Stay close," Clara whispered, her heart pounding like a drum. The path felt alive, each step pushing against the unknown. Suddenly, the figure halted, raising a hand. Ahead, an ancient tree loomed, twisted and gnarled, its roots snaking across the ground like sleeping serpents. There, sparkling faintly in the moonlight, was an odd symbol carved into its trunk. The air grew thick with tension, as if the very earth were holding its breath. "What does it mean?" Someone dared to ask, but the figure remained silent, eyes fixed on the symbol. A sense of urgency crackled in the air, electric and palpable. "Is that a sign?" Clara thought, stepping closer to inspect the carving. But before she could touch it, darkness flickered in the corners of her vision. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. Was it just the shadows, or was there something more lurking just beyond? Then she heard it, a low growl, rumbling from the depths of the woods. It was deep, primal, and laced with malice. Everyone froze, their hearts racing, blood pounding as they realized they weren't alone anymore. What could be hiding in the darkness, waiting for them? And what secrets did the ancient tree hold? Clara held her breath, feeling the reality of their situation close in on her. The haunting truth was unraveling, but at what cost? Would they be able to unearth the lake's secrets, or would they become another part of the darkness? The answer loomed just beyond the shadows. A shiver ran down Clara's spine as the growl reverberated through the air, cold and visceral. The townsfolk stood like statues, their faces painted with disbelief and fear. Clara's heart raced, a frantic pulse in her throat. Who or what lay hidden among the trees? She could feel the dread wrap around her, a tightening grip that refused to loosen. "Stay together," Clara urged, her voice trembling slightly as she instinctively reached for the hand of her younger brother, Jake. He squeezed her fingers tightly, his eyes wide, reflecting the pale moonlight. She turned back to the shadowy figure, still ominous and unyielding. "What do we do now?" "Listen," the figure finally spoke again. Its voice was almost a whisper, but it commanded the attention of the crowd. "The darkness seeks to consume you. You must illuminate the truth." With that, it stepped closer to the snarling shadows, revealing a glint of silver in its hand, a pendant shaped like the sun. The growl intensified, echoing through the trees, then, as suddenly as it began, it faded into a chilling silence. Every heartbeat seemed to amplify the tension suffocating the night air. Clara glanced around, gauging the reactions of the townsfolk. Was it fear or resolve? Murmurs danced in the air, snippets of conversations echoing her own thoughts. What truth? What had been hidden for so long? Then, to her shock, the figure knelt before the ancient tree. This is where it begins. Each mark in the wood tells a story: pain, betrayal, sacrifice. It traced its fingers over the symbol, and with every stroke, a faint glow pulsed around the carving, casting flickering shadows. "You must awaken their souls." Clara's palms turned clammy. "Awaken their souls?" she echoed. "How?" The figure lifted its gaze, searching through the crowd. "You must share the secrets buried with the lake. Each story must be told, each name remembered. Only then will the spirits become still." Before Clara could respond, a bone-chilling scream pierced the night. It was a sound drenched in anguish, tearing through them, a portal to the past. The crowd recoiled, pressing tighter together. Shadows danced wildly around them, voices echoing from the depths. "Help us," they whispered, a cacophony of desperation and longing. "Is it coming from the lake?" Somebody gasped, but Clara barely heard. Her thoughts raced. "Jake," she murmured, feeling the weight of responsibility bear down on her. "We need to get to the lake." "Are you sure?" He looked fearful, but Clara felt a surge of determination. She had never backed away from a challenge. Not when the stakes were this high. The figure rose, standing tall amidst the fear. You must decide. Will you face the past, confront the darkness, and understand the truth? Or will you turn away, letting the shadows rule your fate? Clara's breaths were shallow, each one a decision teetering on the edge. She glanced at the crowd, eyes wide with anticipation, others searching for seeds of bravery in each other. If we commit to this together, we can do it. We can't let them down, she said, her voice filled with conviction, but just as she took a step forward, the ground trembled slightly beneath them. What had they awakened? The figure turned back to her, urgency flashing in its enigmatic gaze. Time is running out. Act now, or face the consequences. The air felt electric with their dilemma. Clara's heart pounded like thunder as the stillness was shattered. Was the lake awaiting their arrival, or had they unwittingly stepped over a boundary no one could see? As the shadows grew longer, a deep sense of foreboding settled upon her. The chilling truth was on the horizon, ready to unfold, but at what cost? What awaited them at the heart of the lake? And would they be brave enough to face it? Clara felt the weight of the crowd closing in, their hopes hanging precariously in the balance. The whispers intensified, a gathering storm of fear and anticipation swirling around her. She turned to Jake, his face pale, filled with uncertainty that matched her own. "Jake, we can't stand here," Clara urged, brushing back the wild strands of hair from her face. "We need to find the truth before it finds us." With a reluctant nod, Jake followed her lead, the effervescent buzz of tension crackling in the air around them. As they moved towards the lake, the grip of fear around Clara's heart tightened. What lay beyond the shadows? The path was treacherous, twisting through gnarled roots and underbrush. Each step stirred up the scent of damp earth and rotting leaves. Clara's heart thudded in her ears, drowning out the distant echoes of the anguished cries. The closer they got, the clearer the chilling whispers became, the sorrowful requests of those long forgotten. "Remember us." A sudden burst of fog rolled in, swirling around them like fingers of the past trying to pull her deeper into despair. Clara paused, instinctively turning back to the crowd, who remained rooted at the ancient tree, their faces a mix of desperation and hope. "Stay close," she yelled back, forcing herself to sound more confident than she felt. As they reached the edge of the lake, the surface shimmered eerily under the waning moonlight. The silence felt suffocating, stretched taut, like a rubber band ready to snap. Clara could see the faint glimmers of something beneath the surface shadows. Memories? There were secrets here, buried deep within the depths, and she felt an unexplainable pull. "Clara," Jake whispered, swallowing hard. "What if we're not supposed to be here?" But Clara shook her head. "We have to confront whatever's hidden here." Just then, a shattering sound echoed across the water, slicing through the stillness, a shard of ice cracking against time. The waters erupted violently, and a shape emerged, rising from the depths with a grace that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. Clara gasped, gripping Jake's arm. It was a woman, ethereal and pale, eyes dark as voids, reaching out with fingers that melted into the lake. "Help us," she echoed, her voice wrapping around Clara like a shroud. "Help us remember." A wave of anguish washed over Clara, pulling at her heartstrings. The pain was palpable, the collective sorrow of so many souls trapped within the lake. "What do you want from us?" Clara shouted, the very ground beneath them vibrating with desperation. "We are forgotten," the specter pleaded, her voice rising above the growing wind. "Only you can restore our stories. Only you can set us free." Every nerve in Clara's body screamed to flee, but something more profound held her in place. The truth beckoned, an invitation fraught with untold secrets and burdens. "What do we do?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. The figure pointed towards the water, a haunting glow illuminating the depths as names began to rise, swirling like smoke, lost lives, broken dreams, buried tales. "Speak their names. Bring forth their truths. Only then will the shadows relinquish their claim." Clara's pulse quickened. Could she really uncover the pain that lay dormant? What if the cost was more than she was ready to bear? Would revealing these buried truths bring healing or unleash an even greater darkness upon them all? As the names echoed in their minds, Clara turned toward Jake, who was rooted in fear, yet a flicker of determination shone in his eyes. "We have to do this together," he said, his voice firm. Just then, a turbulent wind swept across the lake, sending chills down Clara's spine. The cries of the forgotten grew louder, pleading, desperate. Time was slipping away. "Tell me, Clara." The voice of the figure from the trees echoed in her mind. "Will you embrace their stories? Will you choose to light the path towards redemption?" With her heart pounding, Clara realized the weight of the moment. The air was electric, and the lake awaited their decision. Would she have the courage to face the truths lurking beneath the darkness, or would she turn away, allowing fear to silence the past? The night stretched eternally as she took a deep breath, knowing the choice would change everything, and just as Clara opened her mouth to speak the first name, a shadow moved beneath the water, dark and menacing, pulling her gaze into the depths. What monstrous secret was the lake still hiding? Clara's breath hitched in her throat as the shadow writhed beneath the lake's surface, its dark form twisting like a nightmare struggling to break free. With every passing second, the dread surrounding her grew heavier, a suffocating blanket pressing down on her chest. She stepped back, drawing Jake closer, but even he could only manage a shaky exhale. "Clara, we need to go," Jake urged, his eyes wide with terror. Yet, deep within her heart, Clara felt something primal urging her to stay. The whispers swirled around them like a storm, and amongst the echoes, she could hear snippets of fractured names, each one a fragile thread begging to be unraveled. "Help us remember," the figure murmured again, her plea a siren call. The shadow surged again, splitting the surface. Clara felt the icy tendrils of the water reach out, teasing her ankles, the fear clawing at her resolve. She couldn't walk away now, not when answers lay just beneath her. "Tell me who you are," Clara shouted over the rising winds, her voice trembling but firm. "What do you want from us?" She sensed Jake's presence wavering beside her, but his hand tightened around hers, grounding her in that moment. "We are bound by forgotten truths," the specter replied, its voice a chilling echo that wrapped around Clara's heart. "Names lost, stories buried, lives unlived. You must unearth them, or remain like us, a whisper beneath the silence." As the moonlight caught the surface, Clara's resolve fortified. "I'll do it. I'll restore your stories." She was barely aware of Jake shaking his head, his worry painting his features in strokes of confusion. "Clara, you don't know what might happen. This isn't just a game." He looked out toward the water, fear pooling in his gaze. "I know what happens if we don't try," Clara countered, her voice rising above the cacophony. "They'll remain lost forever. We can't let that happen." A sudden rush of wind sent a spray of icy water splashing against her, shocking her into focus. The shadow beneath the surface shifted once more, and from its depths, the outlines of hand-etched names began to surface. Each inscribed name twinkled like stars against the dark water, an invitation and a warning. With a deep breath, Clara called out the first name that floated into her mind, a name that had been whispered since she crossed the lake's threshold. "Madeline." Silence. Then a low rumble like distant thunder echoed from the depths as the name slipped into the night air. Waves began to ripple violently, a tsunami of memories surging forward. Clara watched in horror as the water split, revealing glimpses of past lives entangled in shadows, faces of anguish twisted with regret and yearning. "Remember us" echoed more fervently, now mixed with the cries of something far darker. It was a chorus of lost souls, each note tinged with sorrow. Jake looked back at Clara, the fear in his eyes morphing into something more profound, a realization. "Clara, we have to stop this. It's not just their pain we're calling forward." But just as he spoke, the shadow surged upward once more, morphing into a dark figure, its silhouette towering against the moonlit night. No longer just a memory, but but a perilous guardian of the unspoken truth. Rising from the water, the figure loomed over them, a grotesque amalgamation of their fears shaped into something monstrous. Its eyes glinted with an ancient rage that sent chills skating down Clara's spine. "Foolish mortals," it hissed, a voice like grinding stones. "You disturb the past at your own peril. Only darkness awaits those who seek to uncover what was lost." The air charged, filled with imminent danger, as Clara's pulse pounded in her ears. She saw the fear spread among the crowd, their expressions a mixture of horror and fascination, poised on the brink of history. "Isn't that what we wanted?" she thought, her heart racing as the lake whispered its terrible secrets. With the echoes of the forgotten drowning the air, she focused on Jake's face, searching for strength, for a plan, for anything to confront this darkness that brewed just above the water. Just then, the ground trembled, and Clara knew they had crossed an unseen line. The question lingered: would they pay the cost to uncover the names and faces from the past, or were they primed to unleash a deeper malignancy? As the shadows loomed closer, Clara realized something vital: the truth was about to unfold, but at what price? And just as the dark figure began to move toward them, shaking the very foundation of their resolve, another name burst forth from Clara's lips, almost instinctively. Would this unleash salvation or doom? "Who else will I have to summon?" Clara wondered, the weight of her choice hovering over her like a sword ready to drop. What truth lay waiting beyond that dreadful name? The figure advanced with quiet menace, its outline distorting as it stepped closer to the edge where the water met the land. Clara's heart raced, the pulse of fear thrumming in her ears. She could see the crowd behind her, spellbound and terrified, their faces ghostly pale in the moonlight. She desperately scanned for answers amidst their horror. Their collective fear mirrored her own. "What have you awakened?" The creature's voice slithered through the air, coiling around Clara like a noose. "You meddle in realms far beyond your comprehension. Clara." Jake's voice broke through her daze, urgent and sharp. "We can't stay. We need to get out of here." But Clara felt anchored to the spot. The names floated before her like gossamer threads, alive and vibrating with stories yearning to be told. "No," she whispered, her eyes locked on the figure. "I can't. I have to know. I have to summon." "Don't!" Jake shouted, his grip tightening around her wrist. "We can't afford to play with whatever that is. It's not just a story, it's a warning." The shadow paused, assessing Jake with a cold glint in its eyes. "Wise one, yet futile. Every name summoned tightens the noose around their lives. Every truth revealed extracts a price." Clara's throat tightened at the implications. She remembered Madeline, how her name had conjured horror. Did she dare call another? The names began to shimmer in her mind like stars, flickering one by one. What if she called the wrong one? What if another name brought forth something worse? And deep in her gut, a dark confidence surged, an insatiable curiosity that merged with dread. "Okay," Clara breathed, her voice barely a whisper. "Let us go with the light instead of the darkness. I'll say a name, one that brings hope." Above the roar of the wind, she cried out the next name, her spirit soaring with the weight of expectation. "Amelia." Silence encapsulated the night as the name slipped into the depths, hanging in the air like an uninvited guest. The creature recoiled, its expression shifting momentarily from rage to surprise. "Foolish girl." It hissed, the shadows behind its form growing and twisting wildly. "You tread on fragile ground. Your arrogance will awaken the storm. Do you seek salvation or doom?" Clara's heart raced as echoes of past voices rose from the water like a chorus of warnings, engulfing her in a spiraling wave of despair. Images flooded her mind: young Amelia, laughter ringing in the air, then silence. Darkness. It was a cycle, and now, Clara was part of it. Amidst the chaos, Clara felt a pull, a connection. If Amelia was here, then surely she held some key. "Amelia. What do you want? What do we need to do?" The lake roared to life, its depths roiling as if responding to her plea. The dark figure surged forward, merging with the waves, its form shivering under the tension of her words. Clara felt the energy shift, thrumming violently around them, and then the surface of the water exploded, the lake began to twist, a vortex swirling in chaotic motion. Clara and Jake were thrown off their feet, scrambling to regain balance as the air filled with deafening roars. Light burst forth from the water, a brilliant, blinding white that pierced through the darkness, illuminating the horrified faces of the onlookers. Clara shielded her eyes, fear mingling with awe, uncertainty clawing at her heart. What could this mean? With a sudden crash, the light coalesced into a figure, an ethereal representation of Amelia. She glimmered, glowing with hope, her translucent form standing strong among the debris. "Speak, Clara," she called, her voice a soothing balm. "Together, we can break the chains that bind us." Clara felt exhilaration bubble within her even as the shadows writhed in fury. This was no ordinary spirit. This was the key. But the figure behind them lurked, its rage palpable. "You dare to defy the balance?" It growled, echoing ominous threats. "You will pay dearly." Clara felt a flicker of doubt, a moment of hesitation. Could they truly challenge this force? And what price would they have to pay to unlock the truths of the past, as the battle of light and shadow began to clash? Clara realized they were standing at the precipice of something monumental. What would they unveil? Salvation or destruction? All she knew was, as the water churned and thunder rolled above them, the answers were seconds away from making themselves known. What fate awaited them as the boundary of light and dark shattered? Would Clara's courageous choice bring liberation for souls lost beyond the water, or was she merely sealing their doom? The air crackled with raw energy as Clara stared into Amelia's luminous eyes, searching for signs of reassurance or guidance. The gravity of their situation pushed down on her like lead. She could feel the tension ripple through the crowd, as breaths were held and hearts raced in an unholy symphony of fear. "Clara," Amelia urged, her voice steady yet filled with urgency. "You must focus. The darkness knows of your doubts and will exploit them. Speak your truth." Clara's pulse quickened, and anxiety coursed through her veins. What truth? The weight of her choice loomed large, questions swirling relentlessly in her mind. She thought of her own life, of everything she had sacrificed for this moment. Could the brilliance of Amelia's light truly balance the dark forces they faced? In the distance, the shadowed figure snarled, its dark form pulsating with malevolence. What foolishness! You think a child's hope can break the chains of despair? I will unleash my fury upon you. The winds howled, whipping Clara's hair like tendrils of a ghost reaching for her as she struggled to keep her voice steady. Our truth holds weight. It cannot be silenced. Amelia, what must we do? The ethereal figure shimmered, silver light reflecting across the stormy waters. Speak of the lost names, the ones that still cling to the surface. Call to them. They hold the secrets to your strength. With Amelia's urgency igniting a fire in her spirit, Clara turned to the roiling depths, her heart racing to a furious beat. She began to chant softly, names flowing from her lips as though they were melodies from her past. Madeline. Oliver Samuel. Each name echoed across the lake, vibrating against the horizon, shaking free stories locked in the chains of despair. As the last name slipped from her lips, the surface of the water erupted again, this time with raw power. Ghostly figures spiraled upwards, faces contorted with sorrow and longing, replacing the fury of the shadow. Each of them whispered desperately, their voices blending into a haunting chorus. Clara felt their energy wrapping around her, pulsating through her body. The air shimmered with their combined essence, an overwhelming force against the darkness blooming like a storm. The figure seethed, twisting in the flood of light. Ruin your souls with their memories, foolish girl. You grasp at shadows. Let them go. Clara cried, desperation burning in her chest as she faced the creature. You had your hold on them. They need this release. We all do. With every name that Clara uttered, more spirits came forth, weaving a tapestry of light that shimmered against the darkness. The lake's surface continued to churn, each ripple threatening the very fabric of the shadowy creature, fracturing its might. Jake stood beside her, terror flickering across his face as he wheeled around, scanning their frightened audience. "Clara! We're running out of time, it's coming." The shadows exploded towards them, a force that swallowed the sounds of the crowd, muffling their cries. Clara winced, the weight of its threat pressing closer. She couldn't let darkness win that moment. Clara remembered a truth she had once pushed aside. "Amelia, what do you need us to do? How do we finish this?" "Trust in your courage." Amelia's voice echoed through the chaos. "Embrace the light and wield it with love. Only together can you shatter the chains that bind. Let your soul be the key." A zest of understanding swept through Clara, calming the storm inside her. She glanced at Jake, their eyes locking in shared resolve. Together, they held tightly to the flickering flame of hope, daring to plunge into the darkest abyss. "Everyone!" Clara shouted, her voice cutting through the bleakness. "We need to stand together. We can do this. You've lost so much, let us reclaim it." The shadows hesitated, swirling violently, anticipating their next move. The onlookers, still lost in fear, began to stir, uncertainty replaced by the echo of Clara's plea. She could sense their doubts beginning to dissolve, the light around Clara intensified, her heart pounding with fresh energy, unfurling a hidden strength deep within her. If they could break this cycle, break the chains that hold the lost, the lake could be freed. But could unity triumph over the darkness lurking in every shadow? With the figure looming ever closer, Clara understood that the success of their mission would demand everything they had. Could she ignite the crowd into action, summoning courage from their depths before the creature crushed their hopes entirely? The air was taut with unanswered questions, and Clara braced herself for what was to come, knowing they stood on the knife's edge of fate. What choice would they make, and would it be enough to drive away the night? The shadows roared as Clara's heart raced, her breath shallow and quick. The dark figure shifted, a malevolent force ready to pounce. She could feel its fury, an angry monster twisting in the storm. Clara clenched her fists, desperate to summon a light strong enough to overpower it. "Trust." Amelia called again, her vibrant energy sparking through the air like lightning. "You're not alone, Clara. Believe in the power of your truth and the spirits you've called." The names echoed in Clara's mind, a rhythmic chant that opened the floodgates. Madeline, Oliver, Samuel. The waves burst higher, the figures lifting more firmly towards the surface, but the tendrils of darkness rushed against them, each one a vicious reminder of fear and despair. Jake grabbed Clara's arm, pulling her closer. "Clara! You have to focus. They need you to lead." The crowd watched, some frozen in fear, others lingering in doubt. Faces twisted in terror, yet there was something else, a seed of hope planted by Clara's words. "Madeline, Oliver, Samuel," she recited again, growing bolder, her voice melting into the howling wind. "Together, we'll reclaim what was lost." With each utterance, the spirits swirled in greater numbers, their glow illuminating the lake's churning water. The dark figure recoiled, its snarls morphing into frantic hisses. Clara felt the pull of their pain, a longing, a regret, and with it, a fury growing inside her. She didn't just want to fight, she wanted to heal. "Set them free. Set us all free." Clara shouted, her voice cutting through the darkness like a knife. The gathering around the lake began to stir, hesitant murmurs breaking into supportive chants. "For the lost. For the light." They echoed Clara's words, like a chant born from their collective grief. With each voice joining the chorus, a wave of energy surged toward the dark figure, its form shuddering as it grasped for control. Clara could see the fear in its eyes, and a rush of exhilaration coursed through her. This wasn't just about reclaiming the lost, it was a desperate battle for their own spirits. "Release your doubts," Clara yelled, desperation mingling with defiance. Embrace the light. Let their names guide you. Together with Jake and the crowd, she felt scattered fragments of strength knit together. A golden thread unfurled, binding the spirits to their living counterparts, and Clara seized it. The figures shimmered with renewed vigor, pushing against the darkness that had so long kept them captive. The shadows howled, a deafening sound that tried to swallow her resolve. But Clara stood firm, her voice unwavering. Madeline. Oliver. Samuel. You are not forgotten. A blast of light exploded from the lake, shining against the gathering storm clouds, forcing the dark entity to contort and recoil. It was a living creature, wrought from desperation and fear, now fraying at the edges. But just as victory glimmered like sunlight in the distance, an ominous voice echoed from within the depths of the shadows. You think this is over? You've merely stirred the abyss. I assure you, the darkness will return and it will be hungrier. Clara felt a shudder ripple through her. This wasn't just a fight against the shadows, it was a prelude to something greater, lurking just beyond their grasp. The spirits surged, brighter and more vivid than before, but she couldn't ignore the unease creeping over her heart. How would they overcome the sinister force that promised to return? Would their newfound light hold? As the dark figure writhed, she held the resilient threads of hope. But should she continue to weave? Or was it a trap, a lure into deeper despair? The crowd stood breathless, waiting for her signal. Clara had a choice to make, but could she truly lead them into the unknown, knowing darkness could always resurface? Uncertainty thickened the air, thick enough to taste. With each heartbeat, they hovered on the edge of despair and hope, unaware of the storm that loomed just beyond. Would they be ready for what lay ahead? Or would they fall into a deeper abyss than before? The moment hung, suspended in the air like a fragile crystal teetering on the edge of disaster. Clara's heart hammered in her chest, the pounding growing louder than the howling winds. She turned to Jake, his face a canvas of worry and determination etched with lines of sweat. We can't just wait, she urged, her voice barely a whisper over the chaos. What if it comes back stronger? Jake squeezed her arm tight, a grounding force in the whirlwind. You have to trust the spirits, Clara. They want to be free, just like us. His eyes sparkled with urgency, but doubt tinged their depths. The crowd caught her eye, some trembling as fear played across their faces, while others stared intently, waiting for Clara to take the lead. A thunderous clap echoed above them, belting across the lake, and Clara's heart clenched. They needed to seize the moment, and fast. Madeline. Oliver. Samuel. She shouted again, her voice bolstered by desperation. The names echoed like a battle cry, reverberating through the night. One by one, the spirits answered her call, flickering into existence around the lake, each one a beacon of light amid the encroaching darkness. Clara felt their collective energy envelop her, a wave of hope against despair. Yet, as their brightness surged, the darkness shifted, twisting and turning, more animated, more formidable. The ground beneath their feet trembled, cracking open pathways like veins in an arm, a reminder that darkness wasn't merely a foe, it was an intruder with every intent to claim what had been disturbed. Clara's throat tightened, and she felt the weight of responsibility crush down. What if she wasn't enough? What if the light crumbled beneath the weight of despair? A wind swept through the crowd, pulling at their clothes and hair like ghostly fingers. Clara steadied herself, breathing through her mounting fear. We need to push it back, she insisted, her tone sharpening with resolve. For every person lost to this darkness, we will not let them take our hope. The crowd began to mirror her passion, their voices rising, united and defiant. For the lost. For the light. They shouted, a fierce chant that boomed over the crashing waves. Clara felt the pulse of their strength, a collective heart beating fiercely against the night, but as hope began to blossom, the air grew charged with an unsettling energy. The dark figure twisted into a monstrous form, a snarling visage of the very fear and anguish it fed upon. Shadows stretched and twisted, drawing closer, whispering threats that nodded with Clara's every thought. "You think your light can contend with my darkness?" It sneered, voice dripping with malice. "You've merely opened the floodgates of despair. I am the abyss, and I shall consume you all." Clara's chest tightened with dread, panic erupting beneath her resolve. With every ounce of courage she possessed, she found her voice. "No. You will not take us. Not today." In that moment, something shifted. A tentative glow began emanating from Clara herself. It started as a flicker but grew into a strong, radiant light, intertwining with the spirits around her. She focused, channeling every ounce of trust she had in her belief, in the power of truth and love that surpassed all fear. The dark entity shrieked, recoiling as if struck by an unseen force. The sound cut through Clara like ice, yet the light surged louder, drowning out the shadow's shrieks. It was as if a dam had burst inside her, flooding the space with energy and clarity, but with just as quickly, the darkness lashed out. A shadowy tendril shot toward the crowd, snaking through the ranks. Panic erupted, people gasping and stepping back. They were ready to disperse, to flee from the threat that loomed intensely, just as Clara had feared. "Stay strong," Clara yelled, her heart now racing faster than ever. "If we scatter, we'll fall to the dark. We need each other." A few members of the crowd hesitated, glancing back at her, and she saw the flickering resolve begin to rekindle. Would they risk everything with her, or would fear carry them back to the safe cocoon of doubt? Clara took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the connection she was forging. Shadows loomed, hungry, but she couldn't back down. "We are more than just fear. We are light, we are hope." As her voice rang out, she sensed the spirits rallying beside her. A flicker grew into a blazing fire, but in that moment of rallying, Clara's gaze drifted to the depths of the lake. From the blackest depths came a low, thrumming heartbeat, a sign that the shadows were planning something far more sinister than she could imagine. What would they unleash from that chaos lurking just beneath the surface? As the echo of Clara's words hung in the air, a bright light surged from deep within the lake, illuminating the night like a sunrise. The water glimmered, casting away the encroaching shadows. The spirits emerged in waves, like a tide of shimmering hope rising against the darkness. They twisted their forms in graceful patterns, swirling toward Clara, empowering her with their energy. "Feel our stories. Know our pain and remember us," they whispered, voices harmonizing like a beautiful choir breaking through the veil of despair. Each name she had called now resonated within her, each lost life intertwining with the pulse of the living, but the darkness writhed, furious and unyielding. The shadowy figure morphed, growing larger, anger radiating off it like heat from a fire. "You think your weak light can conquer me? You are merely playing with forces you do not understand." It roared, its voice jagged like ice shattering underfoot. The ground trembled, and Clara's heart pounded in synchrony with the chaos. Yet, she stood firm, emboldened by Amelia's light and the collective strength of the spirits around her. "You're wrong," she yelled into the tempest. "Our hope is stronger than your fear. Each story you've tried to bury only makes our light shine brighter. We will remember." With every story she shared, the crowd began to react, their fear shifting into determination. They were awakening, eyes shining with belief as they formed a circle of light around Clara. "For the lost. For the light." They chanted again, uniting their voices until the very air vibrated. The shadow entity howled, its shape distorting with rage. "You dare challenge me? You will all meet your end." It shrieked, just as tendrils of darkness lashed out, attempting to grasp those nearest to it. Clara gasped as the shadows reached out, trying to ensnare Jake, but a radiant light burst forth from her heart, shielding them. "Stay together. Trust one another. We are stronger as one," Clara shouted, rallying those beside her. Fear melted into courage, and the tendrils of darkness recoiled, unable to breach their united front. "Now! We must speak their names again," Clara commanded passionately, her voice slicing through the chaos. Madeline. Oliver. Samuel. You are not forgotten. With each name, the water boiled over, shadows falling back as if repelled by the light. Figures emerged from the lake, illuminating their faces, spilling tales of forgotten love and sorrow to the wind. It transformed into a spectacle, the essence of memories bursting forth, rising and embracing the light, facing the dark entity with resolute strength. The shadow writhed, losing its grip on the land as Clara continued to call upon the lost souls. Amelia. You lived. You loved. You deserve to be free. She cried, breathing life into each name buried in history. The dark figure faltered, eyes wide with despair as the spirits began to envelop it in radiant energy, bright and beautiful. No. This cannot be. It bellowed, yet the more Clara spoke, the more it disintegrated, the light consuming the darkness, fusing memories with hope. Finally, the last name slipped from Clara's lips, and a brilliant pulse erupted across the lake, cutting through the darkness like a knife through butter. The shadowed creature screeched, its form collapsing as the light broke through the night. The echoes of the lost grew louder, drowning out the monster's despair. Clara felt a weight lift from her shoulders, something deep inside her uncoiling. The lake shuddered, a final surge of water arching upwards before crashing back down, releasing a vibrant luminescence that washed over the land. Then silence fell, a deep, tranquil hush settling over the night. The shadows that had loomed so large dwindled into nothing, dissolving like smoke. Clara stood, panting, her heart racing but full of hope. The spirits lingered briefly, glowing with gratitude before merging back into the light of the moonlit night, free at last. Clara exhaled deeply, tears of relief streaming down her cheeks. Around her, the townsfolk gasped, finally understanding the transformation that had taken place. Jake squeezed her hand, eyes twinkling with wonder and awe. We did it. They're free. His voice trembled with emotion, and Clara nodded, overwhelmed by the triumph and weight of their shared experience. As the crowd began to cheer, Clara turned towards the woods, the ancient tree standing like a sentinel. It had witnessed the battle between light and dark. We must remember them, she whispered, and in that moment she felt something in her heart shift. Together, they would honor the memories of those lost, ensuring their stories would never fade again. Clara felt a new sense of purpose unfurl within her. This experience had changed her, it had changed all of them. As dawn broke, hues of orange and pink painted the sky, the lake now calm, once again reflecting the beauty of life. This was the moment to embrace new beginnings, but as Clara looked back one last time at the lake, a ripple spread across the surface, a flicker of darkness teasing at the edges. Clara caught her breath. While they had pushed back the shadows for now, the darkness was still a part of their world, waiting. They would need to stand vigilant. Let us go home, Clara said, her voice firm and hopeful, and together, they moved forward, knowing the power of unity would guide them through whatever lay ahead. And as she walked away from the edge of the lake, a vibrant determination bloomed within her heart. Together, they would ensure the stories lived on. Now, this is the moment to take action. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button right this instant to feed the algorithm. I want to hear from you in the comments. Flood the section with your reactions and theories about this wild conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this amazing finish. Your support is what keeps us going, so be a true fan and show your love. Let us keep this story alive.